Welcome back to the channel. My name is Ruben and this is Rattlecan Rebuilds. Here is my 2007 B7 Audi A4 that I mistakenly purchased on Facebook Marketplace for $900. Now, that's a very cheap price, but after everything that you're about to see in this video, I think I still overpaid for this car. So I want you guys to stick around to the end because you guys are going to be very surprised on the outcome of this car. So if you watched any of my other videos, in the first video we figured out the car had no compression on 3 cylinders. Second video we dove into the engine, and as we dove deeper we found that it had burnt valves on 2 cylinders, a melted spark plug, bad turbo, melted catalytic converter, and a slew of other issues. The more I dug, the worse it got. There was just problems after problems. No maintenance was ever done to this car. I don't know whoever owned it before me, but they did not take care of it whatsoever. They drove it to the ground literally, and I ended up with it. A couple weeks ago, we jumped back into the car again. I had all the parts that I needed, my high pressure fuel pump, all of the components for the valve train, and new timing tools and all that stuff that you need to put the engine back together. I got it all back together, and you guys are not gonna believe what happened after we got the car all put back together. All right, well, without further ado, let's jump into this disaster.
Now it's quite frustrating because I had literally just had all this stuff put together. The cams and everything were installed and I had to take it all back apart, and you guys are about to find out why.
In the last video, if you guys remember, I was getting ready to install the timing chain and timing chain tensioner, and we ran into the issue where I had to remove the cams again. And it's been a week since, and I got all the parts in. I had to buy a special tool from Amazon, which is this guy right here. I had to weld it and modify it because all the reviews say that this thing breaks. It did break on me twice. So it broke on me the first time I tried it without the welds. I welded it, tried to use it again, and it ended up breaking. So this is the second time I have welded it, and I mean I welded the hell out of this thing. So hopefully this time it doesn't break. And the reason why I had to buy this tool was because I was having trouble getting this guy off. The variable valve timing actuator. The bolt was seized. This bolt right here, what's left of it, the actual head, this piece here was seized inside of the actuator. So it wasn't the threads, it wasn't this part, because once I drilled this whole piece, this whole head off of it, I literally twisted this out of the cam. If you go to my YouTube shorts, you will see posted a video about that. Well, I ended up drilling it out of the cam, and I kind of bit into the cam a little bit right there. I don't think that's a big issue. The cam did get a little damaged from that whole fiasco right there, but these aren't the machine surfaces, so I think it'll be okay. So with that being said, I had to order a genuine Audi actuator. These things are not cheap. Luckily, I have a really good part supplier, and he got it to me for a very good price. I had to get an OEM bolt, brand new one. I also had to buy a brand new genuine high pressure fuel pump. I ended up taking this whole thing apart. Well, there's pieces falling everywhere. These aren't cheap either, but my part supplier was able to get it to me at a very, very good price. And I am very lucky that I have this guy. Otherwise, I'd be screwed at this point. So now that we have everything, the correct tool, the right parts, everything disassembled the way it's supposed to be, now we can go ahead and put it on the engine the correct way. And I should not have an issue finally getting this new timing chain and tensioner installed.
So once again, we had the cams installed with the cam plate and a whole new set of bolts, as well as cleaning and reapplying anaerobic sealant. It's really starting to eat at me to keep having to buy new stuff for this car.
The tool ended up doing well. It held, it didn't break. I saw it kind of flexing at one point and it kind of scared me. But guys, I made this tool because the other one that I used last time in the last video, these bolts ended like that, you know, just bent and twisted, and I couldn't put any more torque on it. And so I decided to make this with a old control arm I had lying around and 2 head studs. It worked really, really well. This thing is sturdy. This is gonna go in the keep pile for special tools. But I didn't want to film that because, guys, I'm really just trying to get this done. I am tired of farting around with this car, and there's no sense in me filming the same thing over and over again. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. I'm going to take this tool out and continue applying all of the timing components, get the timing belt on. I'm going to get the engine completely timed, and then we can start throwing the intake manifold, the turbocharger, the fuel system, all that stuff in place. And before I do anything else and button anything else up on this car, we are going to hook up a battery and we're going to put the compression gauge and we're going to test the compression. Before I do anything else, before I try and put this all back together, I want to make sure that what I did has fixed the issue and we're not going to have any problems when it comes to actually running the car.
We got the new variable valve timing actuator, the new timing chain and tensioner installed. Everything went well. This time around, I did it the right way. Now let's throw on everything else and get this thing started. I know I'm throwing on the harmonic balancer right now, but the reason I'm doing that is so I can get the engine at top dead center before we throw the timing belt on. It's going to help me line up the timing marks, and that way when I go to put the timing belt on, it's a lot easier. After getting the number 1 cylinder at top dead center, it was time to start installing all of the timing components. I did not replace any of this stuff because it looked brand new still. And from what I can gather on evidence from this engine is it looks like somebody had done work to the engine previously. And they replaced a lot of components, a lot of the timing components as well as the fuel. But more on that later. For now, we're going to put the timing tensioner, and you want to make sure that flat tab sits inside of the cylinder head because that's what helps it hold tension. So I lined all the timing marks up, and one thing I learned is you want to set the cam off just like one tooth, because once you set the tension, it'll be lined perfectly. I already spun the engine around twice, and I rechecked the timing marks, and everything is in line. There's no crazy sounds coming from the engine, no binding. Everything spins over smoothly. So I can 100% say this engine is perfectly timed, and we are ready to do a compression test. After completing the compression test, I got around 100 to 115 PSI on all 4 cylinders. So I continued with the assembly of the rest of the engine, and I had to replace a bunch of these rubber hoses. Thankfully, they were not that expensive. I did order all of these on Rock Auto, and they were all OEM brand, which ended up costing me around $60. I also got a new thermostat for 40 bucks and a new oil cooler and oil filter housing, and I think I paid around $50 for that one. So not really expensive, but very well worth the peace of mind. Like I said at the beginning, I ended up getting a new high pressure fuel pump. I don't really think it needed it, but the one that was in there just, I don't know, I didn't feel too good about it. So I ended up getting a new one for $120, OEM as well. And then the turbo, I had to rebuild the turbo. I got a rebuild kit for 120 bucks, did the rebuild myself, and I also got all the mounting hardware and gaskets that go with it. So I jumped on assembling the intake manifold and adding all the parts that it needed, like the intake manifold runner control actuator, the fuel lines, and all of the pipes and hoses for the purge and evap system. I did reuse the old fuel injectors, but I did rebuild them so they were in very good condition. I tested all of them, they all tested very well. But there was one last filter that I needed to change on them, and that was the micro particulate filter that goes in the tip or the nozzle of the fuel injector. And I found this cool little tool on Amazon. I think I paid like $12 for that with the filters, and it has a little screw that comes out the end. You screw it into the fuel injector, it screws into that filter, and then you just twist the knob and it pops it right out of the filter. I added new O-rings to the fuel injectors and popped them into the cylinder head. Next, we had to take care of some wiring issues before I could put the intake manifold on. I had this broken connector that I had to replace, and then the ignition coil connectors obviously were broken, just like they are on every B7 or B8 Audi out there. Another thing I took care of while I was in there is the seals on the power steering pump were all bad. I took it all apart. I replaced all of the seals, added some anaerobic sealant. I also added some new copper washers to the banjo bolt and took care of most of the leaks that it had. Now back to the broken connectors. You guys all know that if you go and buy a real professional depinning toolkit, it is really expensive. I found this one on Amazon for 10 bucks. Not gonna lie, the tool was terrible, but for $10, I mean, what could you really ask for? It got the job done, it worked. The pins were really thin and they ended up breaking a couple of times on me. So it was kind of hard to find the right ones, but I ended up finding two that actually worked really well on all the connectors, and I used those throughout the entire job. So all the other 102 pieces that came in the kit, I didn't really need to use anymore. But I'm gonna show you guys right now really quick how I did it. And I wouldn't recommend using pliers to pull the wires out because you can end up damaging them and then causing yourself more electrical issues. And yeah, you definitely don't want that on an Audi. After getting the replacement connectors prepared, it was time to work on the connectors from the wiring harness on the car. And I thought this was a much better repair than actually cutting and splicing the wires into the connector. It's just much cleaner and much easier. Now, like I said, it was a bad idea for me to use pliers because the wires did end up getting a little bit damaged, but not too much. There was no wires touching each other, so I know I'm not going to have any shorts in the future. And I did end up taping everything so that way they were watertight.
No, I just dropped one of my freaking deep pinning tools. Great.
And here is the finished product, all taped up and no more broken connector. What a satisfying repair. Now with all the wiring repaired, I could go ahead and drop in the little harness for the injectors and the sensors, and there's nothing more satisfying than a couple of connector clicks. Just pay attention and listen. Now let's throw on our intake manifold gasket, and I like to throw a little bit of grease on my gaskets before I put them in place. It's not 100% necessary, but I've just known from experience it makes installation easier, also keeps them in place, and you can avoid getting it pinched or nicked for a much smoother install. It's better to do it on O-rings because those do have a little more trouble slipping in place, and those are more prone to getting pinched or nicked. Now we can easily route the plastic PCV tubes in place. So we go to drop in the intake manifold, and whenever you're doing this intake manifold, you have to make an intake manifold installation face. And I have quite a few different kinds, as you will see. But I fiddled around with this thing for quite some time, and then I found something out.
Okay. I think these got bent. And now that I look at them, yes, they did. So I'm gonna need to fix that. The little guides are now straight. So this, in theory, should just slide right in place. Still gonna have to get it over this evap hose, but it's definitely going to slide in place the way it's supposed to now. Oh yeah. Oh, about a pinch of wire here. Let me make sure that's not in the way.
Now you would think that the bent tubes were the only thing keeping this intake manifold from installing correctly, but there was another issue, and this was all on me because I installed something incorrectly, just rushing and not paying attention. You can see it rocking, and it's almost as if something is keeping it from sitting flush on the cylinder head. And then I noticed,
I just wanted to show you that I am also a human being and I make mistakes. So the intake manifold, as you saw, I was struggling to get into place and I kept wondering why. And I noticed, I first thought that the gasket maybe fell off and gotten pinched, but when I pulled it off, you see this, look how far up it's sticking. Look at the other ones. I just turned these ones around, but these things are in upside down. They actually go in like that. And now our intake manifold should go on with no issues.
after the little intake manifold debacle, everything went back together smoothly, and I proceeded to bolt down the coolant crossover tube and start applying all of the PCV pipes and connect all the connectors.
All right, it is time to install our high pressure fuel pump, and we replaced this nasty little hose with a nice new factory OEM one. And this is a factory OEM high pressure fuel pump. You look at it right there, it says Hitachi. This was not cheap. But considering everything with this car, I figured I might as well get a new fuel pump for it. Because I think the reason why it failed to begin with is for fueling issues. So just to eliminate that, I got us a new pump. This hose is in the way. Don't forget to put our clamp on there. And now we can drop it in place. This is a tight squeeze. All right, the hose is in place. And I got a new cam follower that we're going to install right now. But let me move the camera because it is in a bad spot and very shaky. Our little cam follower. Another factory OEM from Inna. And we're going to put a little bit of assembly lube on it and inside of it. This is a wear item that should be replaced about every 5 to 10,000 miles. Trust me, I have read a lot about this thing and they fail quite a bit. And that is why these cars have a lot of issues. There's that. We'll put a little bit of oil on the fuel pump. Okay.
Now that we have everything buttoned up, well, for the most part, enough to at least crank the engine, I want to hook up my compression tester and we're going to do a compression test because I want to make sure that this thing is going to make compression before I go any further and we install any more parts on this. So let's hook up our tester and see what we got. The battery died on the car, so I need to charge that, but I was able to do a compression test on this cylinder here. This one was the one that had a burnt valve in it. And guys, would you look at that? Over 100, and that was with like 2 or 3 cranks I think I got out of it. I'm so excited. So let's keep going. Let's keep putting this thing back together and finally get it running. Now I needed to address the broken connectors on the ignition coils. Isn't this just a fun time getting to replace all of these broken connectors? Look at that. They're all just missing pieces. These things are really hard to get off, so I don't blame the person that broke them, but they're a little bit of a pain in the A to replace. So I went to the junkyard and got a bunch of connectors, pulled the pins out, and went ahead and swapped them over. Very simple, very easy fix. Probably the best fix instead of buying those expensive repair kits that you can get online. I think they're like $30 a piece, and I wasn't gonna spend that much money. For 10 bucks, I got like 30 connectors, and I was able to fix this very easily. We got everything all buttoned up. Wiring's all been fixed. I fixed a few more connectors like this one. There was a lot of connectors that had oil in them, so I cleaned them all out completely. Everything's ready, and now it's turbo time. Yeah.
But first, before we install the turbo, there is a few things we need to replace on it.
And most of those things are just the copper washers or the little metal seals that go on the hoses and tubes for the oil and the coolant that is routed through the turbo. Now, most people replace these lines, but mine seemed okay and they haven't been leaking. So I'm glad I just replaced the little copper O-rings, or crush washers is what they're really called. So we needed to add those parts to the turbo, new gaskets, new hardware, and then we could throw it in. So I got this little crush washer kit on Temu, and I know a lot of people rag because most of the stuff that comes from Temu is crap. But for supplies like shop supplies, I'm telling you guys, tape, glue, sealant, copper washers, all that stuff, very good purchases from Temu and very cheap.
All right, guys, it has been a long time since I have seen this thing like this all put back together. Nobody likes to fix these or work on these because it's expensive, it's a nightmare. I still have a lot to do, but as far as what has to be done is obviously bolt the turbo up, get the exhaust completely bolted up, uh, finish bolting all the accessories on that side, then start running cooling lines, get the radiator and cooling fans in place, get the coolant over there in place, get the intercoolers hooked up, and then we're going to fire this thing up.
Getting the exhaust manifold bolts onto the head was a real pain in the rear end. I just had to contort myself to be able to get them in there, but I was able to do it.
I don't know why, but even though I have done hundreds, maybe even thousands of engine builds, and I go to crank it for the first time, I get extremely nervous. Let's crank it and see what it sounds like. It did not sound like that when I first got this car. It sounded horrible. So just to hear it like that, I am so happy, and I know 100% that this thing's gonna fire up tomorrow morning when I come back and finish buttoning this thing up. I still need to go get coolant. We need to hook up the radiator and the coolant and all of that stuff, get some good fuel in the tank, and then we can finally get this thing started. But it cranks and it sounds really good. I want to replace the O-rings for the transmission cooler lines. These things look like they were leaking heavily. The O-rings themselves don't look bad, but I'm suspecting that these are original and they just do not hold their pressure very well anymore. So very easy, pop these out and we'll replace them with some upgraded higher pressure rating ones. These are basically rated for like air conditioning systems. So I think these ones will do much better than the ones that it had on. I think right there is good. Spring clamp in place and we're all set there. All right, guys, I think there's just a few more things to button up. We're going to throw coolant in this thing and finally start it and get it to run, hopefully.
And the final
Well, the
piece of the
car is
puzzle, the
technically
engine cover.
done, but it is not running 100% yet. It is on the ground and I fired it up and it started misfiring really bad. So we're gonna check, see if it has any codes. I did see the check engine light pop up.
Man, is
So
it
let's run some
satisfying to see
codes
this thing
and
all put
see
back
what we find.
together at once.
All right, let's hook up
Finally,
our
it's been
scanner.
a long time
And this
coming.
is just
In
a little cheap
typical
one. I
Audi
do have a
fashion,
more
there
in-depth
is
one. If
a lot of
I
problems.
need to, I'll hook that one up so we can do a more thorough scan. This thing is running like crap. Ooh wee. There we go. It is misfiring super, super bad. If I give it gas, it stops misfiring. So it is definitely a fuel issue. And look at what we got here. Fuel pressure regulator performance. We definitely don't want to run it with that code because that's why it burned up the valves initially. Let's see what other codes we got. Intake manifold runner, position sensor, switch circuit range, fuel pressure regulator 2. So we got some misfires. All right, we're going to need to do some diagnosing. Okay, so I have a couple of ideas based on the codes that it had. I went and checked and I ran the engine a couple of times with the little intake manifold actuator control motor, whatever that thing is. I ran the engine with that thing disconnected because I had forgot to plug it in somehow. Who knows how? So I plugged it in and I think that it's just not relearned or, you know, adapted itself to running with the car yet. So I have my top scan OBD reader connected to my phone. So we're gonna plug it in and see if we can, you know, get some more in-depth diagnosis with this. Also, the one of the codes was for the fuel pressure regulator sensor or fuel pressure sensor at the rail, which is number 2, which is this guy. So this is one that I pulled out. I had an extra one. I don't know if this is just bad or not. So I swapped in the other one. Let's go to the car. Let's plug in our scanner. Let's clear the codes and then restart the car and see where we're at. Ooh, 13 faults. Engine control module. Transmission 1. Oh boy. Here we are. Load signal error message from engine controller, upper limit exceeded. And this is the transmission fault. Okay. I think that was when I ran and didn't have the lines connected. So we'll clear the codes. All right, let's start this thing up again and see what we get. Well, guys, unfortunately, we have run out of time in this video and I yet to have figured out what is wrong with this thing. Check the codes. The codes just keep getting worse. It just keeps throwing more and more codes. It started to give me a lean code. Then it said P0016, which is cam crank correlation, which I know the timing is fine. I did all of that perfectly and there was no issues there. It's just not running right. So it's starting to just get worse and worse. And I don't want to continue to damage it. When you have lean codes on a turbo car, you run the risk of burning stuff internally and melting pistons. Whoever owned it before me obviously went down this same rabbit hole that I'm starting to go down now, except that they just threw parts at it. They threw coils at it. They threw cam sensors. They tried to fix it with the cheapest way possible, which with these cars, you can't do that. You have to diagnose it and you have to replace with the OEM parts. These cars do not like the cheap Chinese crap. It is just going to actually throw everything else off and run even worse. I think what I'm going to do is, instead of getting into a situation where I'm just going to fire the parts cannon, because I'm already very deep into this car, thousands of dollars, and I don't want to continue to throw money at it blind. I'm going to take some time to diagnose it. So we are going to put the Audi off for a while until I can get it running correctly, move on to other things so I can get some money flowing, get some cars to actually flip, because this one, it was a failure. I failed on this one. It sucks to admit it, but you win some, you lose some, and at this point, I'm going to just stop right now. Start with a clean slate, find out which sensors in the engine bay are OEM and which ones will replace with Chinese stuff. Start with fresh new OEM stuff and then go from there. So yeah, I still need to do a little bit more diagnosing, which I will do. I'm not going to record that, but I'm looking for more cars to buy, so hopefully I can bring us another cool project car. I have a 90s Japanese sports car that I have in mind. It's turboed, it's all-wheel drive, and I think you guys will really like it. I'm going to go check it out. Hopefully I can pick that up, and that'll be the new project. But anyways, if you guys like the video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps me out a lot. If you have not subscribed, please think about subscribing. Hit that subscribe button, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you all in the next video. These are the codes we're getting now. If you guys have any ideas, please reach out to me. Help me out. This car is gonna drive me nuts and drain my bank account and possibly kill my channel. So if you guys know anything, please reach out. Thanks, guys. Catch you next time.